I think the poorest I've ever been was my first year working at the National Bank.
Right,
when I had a car, I had to
all
pay
the
rent.
real life.
Yeah, so I had money coming in, but it was equally going out.
So when you were actually just being a student and you had the fruit picking and whatnot, you could get by
I was
a bit
flush
easier.
January to June.
Yeah. With me today, I have Nick Astwick, CEO with Southern Cross Medical Care Society. Kia ora, Nick. Welcome to Money Talks.
Kia ora. Great to be here.
I wanted to get the intro right because I know there are different parts to Southern Cross, but I'll get you to explain that to me. But maybe could you also put it as if you were explaining to a child?
Well, yeah, I mean, great question. I think as CEO, I believe my role at Southern Cross is, with others, is to really help fellow New Zealanders live well for longer by accessing the care they need when they need it. And I think that's the purpose of Southern Cross ultimately, is to empower our members to live well for longer.
Sure, yeah. And so the different divisions, and there's a Southern Cross Trust, and
yes.
Is that sort of handling the trust is the wealth management side of it, I suppose?
Well, yeah, there's two. I mean, we have one brand in the New Zealand market, the Southern Cross brand, but there's fundamentally two big groups.
Yep.
There's the healthcare delivery group, which is your hospitals and your joint ventures, and then you've got the financial services group or the insurance group.
Yep.
Now, the society is actually the health insurance. That's the parent.
Yep.
But the health insurance business also owns a pet insurance business, a travel insurance business, a life insurance business partnership with Chubb, and also Care HQ, which is with a partnership with ProCare around virtual health services. So it's really, that's the society group.
Yep.
And we are really born 1961, so we're close to 64 years old now, and we're really looking to protect the health-related financial risks of Kiwi families.
So your big job is the insurance part of it?
That's correct.
You said there was a bit of crossover earlier. You're talking about being a director on some of the other parts of the business. So
yes, because the society owns those others as investments. I'm the CEO of the parent, and so also a director of the subsidiary.
And I suppose it's meant to be pretty seamless for Southern Cross customers if they have the insurance and then they go to one of the Southern Cross medical, one of the hospitals or one of the medical facilities. That should be fairly seamless at that end.
Well, that's the idea. But we're also, as the health insurance business, we're about 70% of the health insurance market in terms of the value we pay, about 60% of the lives. So we also pay about 2,500 healthcare providers, including Southern Cross. So we're very much a arm's length, completely separated businesses, because we're actually very different businesses. And we also fund a large amount of the New Zealand healthcare delivery. Southern Cross is actually the third largest health funder in New Zealand after ACC and the government.
Right, yeah. And it's one of those brands, isn't it? I mean, it's so well known to New Zealanders. I mean, when they think of health insurance, they think of you guys. It's sort of almost like a Weet-Bix or something like that. Does that do you feel the responsibility of that with the role?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a massive privilege, but also a massive responsibility. I mean, it's a 64-year-old business. It's got close to 1 million customers. It's about close to $2 billion revenue business. And we, 4.1 million claims we did last year. So there's 4.1 million times where we funded a healthcare service for people that are going through cancer care or getting their hips and knees done. And so it's a massive responsibility. And I think Southern Cross is different, I guess, to, other sort of health insurance businesses, because we're sort of a health business before we're a financial services business.
Yeah,
and the friendly society status, which means that while we're profit conscious, we're not profit driven. We're there for, funding the services for our members. We're a causal-based or purpose-based business at our core.
Sure. I want to come back to a bit of that later, and sort of the difficult balancing act around money and health and things. Yes. But first, can I just go back and ask you about, how you got to the role and what are your first memories of money and the importance of money in the household?
Yes, well, I was born in 1973, so the 70s and 80s, there wasn't a lot of talk about money at home. You know, money matters was probably separate. But my father is a Yorkshireman, which is a tight Scotsman.
Famously.
Exactly. And so think Arkwright of Open All Hours.
Thinking of the Monty Python sketch. Did he tell you about how tough he had it?
Exactly. Well, he grew up in 31, and so he was a teenager when, the UK was getting attacked in World War II. And so we actually learnt a lot from my parents around the relationship money or how you value money. I mean, frugality was the joke. He had a great sense of humour, but he was a tight Scotsman is the way he said it. So we were sort of grown up with the values of money, of spending wisely, of saving, of looking after the pennies to look after the pounds, those sorts of things. But it was really a healthy relationship with money that my parents gave me.
Sure, yeah. And did you feel like, there was any sort of sense of stress around money, or was it, I guess there was a classic sort of Kiwi childhood in those days that we sort of nostalgically look back to where there was a lot more sort of overall equality. There wasn't the highs and lows of wealth and things perhaps so much.
That's right. It was a little bit more even keel. I think if there was any worries about money, it wasn't exposed to us as kids. I mean, we grew up we weren't rich and we weren't poor, but we didn't want for anything.
What did they actually do, your parents?
My dad was he was a wool exporter. He sort of had a long sort of career in grading wool and importing and exporting wool. So he ran his own business ultimately. And Mum was a stay-at-home mum for a long time, and then she studied and trained and ran her own beauty therapy business in due course. So it was a classic quintessential Christchurch provincial upbringing. A simple life, but a really joyful life.
Right. Did you get pocket money and things? Do you remember having money in your hand?
Yes, I got the sort of mandatory pocket money to go and get the sort of 20 or 30 seat mixtures. But I was pretty much from age 12 or 13, my first real gig was the circulars, the paper delivery round, the Tuesday and Thursday.
After I started as well.
Oh, was it? Yeah. So 45 minutes on Tuesday and Thursday, the grind of going out in the wet or the cold or the sun.
And you had to sort of fold them.
Had to fold them, yes. And so
it wasn't great money to kind of
say. But what that gave me was a sense of determination and intentionality, to be able to do that. And that money, bought my own cricket bats or sports equipment or some money to go and spend when we went to the Gold Coast, which was the sort of annual trip each year. But it gave me a little bit of freedom and choice around those sorts of things. I was also lucky enough in the summer holidays, my uncle and auntie owned a big orchard in the Hawke's Bay, so I get shipped up and spend 2 months up there working 7 days a week.
And earn a decent sum.
And so, it might only been $7 an hour, but if you're working 13 hours a day for 6.5 days. And so that fueled my really university career and those sorts of things.
And you talked about buying cricket bats and things. I gather sports was a big part of life for you?
Yes, I think sports I love sports, fully invested in the sort of the cricket and the football and the rugby. But actually sports was a wonderful vehicle for leadership, and for living life.
Was there any one sport where you thought you might have gone on, or just made that the focus right through?
I really loved cricket. I was with the first 11 for cricket and played a lot of indoor cricket. But no, I was. I can remember my first year at Christchurch Boys High. Chris Cairns was in was in the 7th form at that point of time, and so I just
there's some good Christchurch cricketers at that time.
Stephen
Fleming was
there
exactly.
Yeah.
Did you have much of a sense of a career and that sort of stuff when you were at school with picking subjects, and then later when you're thinking about uni? Did you have a sort of a vision for what you wanted to do?
Well, not really. I think the careers advice was probably about a 15-minute interview, at Christchurch Boys High. I mean, I really enjoyed school, loved school, had a sort of sense around commerce and business, and so that sort of fused, I guess, my decision to go and do a commerce degree at University of Canterbury. I had this idea of wanting to be a policeman, because all my mates' fathers were policemen. So I saw that as a leadership opportunity. But when I sort of finished my sort of accountancy degree and waiting to go into the police, I saw this wonderful opportunity at the National Bank Ireland branch, and it was meant to be a gap job, but it ultimately became my career job. I fell in love, I guess, with serving customers and the sort of outcomes that banking can give and financial services can give, whether that's a student getting through the year, or somebody into a home or somebody into a business. I learnt that the outcome of banking was actually quite important.
Yeah. So, I've heard this from other, bank CEOs I've interviewed and so on, that just that passion when they first go into it, and there's sort of a light bulb moment, a realization that it's not all the dry. It's a much more of a people business than people realise, I guess.
Yes, well, banking started as a social enterprise. It started as taking wealth and making sure it was well distributed to the people that needed that to create enterprise, to create business and those sorts of things. So, yes, it is it's a service-based business at its core. And what I learned at National Bank and Kiwi Bank was, the value driver in banking is actually long-term relationships with customers. And so I loved the idea of making sure that the product propositions and customer propositions sort of drove loyalty. Margin is not how banks make money. It's the tenure and the loyalty of your customer base, growing into new products that make money.
Sure. And so, spoiler alert here, you built a career in banking that took you to being Chief Operating Officer with Kiwi Bank.
Yes.
So something went well. You're obviously quite good at it. How did you approach the corporate ladder, I guess?
Well, I think that competitiveness of sporting, learning to lose, learning to play with others, having that sort of intentionality to go for things. And that was, I'm really passionate about banking and the outcomes of banking. And so I just kept on saying yes to opportunities as they presented.
You started as a teller, right? So
I started as a teller, and then got into the banking consultant side, and then very, very quickly ended up as the product manager for the National Bank in Wellington for 2 or 3 years. And that was looking after billions of dollars of term deposits at sort of 22, 23. But I guess my intentionality and dedication, got on well with others, and then really sort of drove to try and be successful. And the great thing with National Bank, it really cared about its people, it really cared about its customers. So I think I was really privileged to have those 5 years there. I went and worked for those, big investment banks in London for 5 years.
So when did you head offshore?
I headed off in 1998.
Right,
so I was about 25 then.
So you managed to avoid the GFC in London, I guess.
Yeah, so they're the 90s, the boom years.
Yeah, that's right. It would have been booming right through that period. And how did you find that? I mean, was it sort of all the high-flying banker stories and lifestyle and all that sort of stuff?
Yes, I wasn't a trader. I was working in operations, and we did some really cool stuff. We did the Euro program in 1999, which is trillions of positions that had to change in a 12-hour window, and it was only Kiwis, Aussies, and South Africans silly enough to do something so crazy. So that was fun, and then I helped them on a strategy, around the operations of the business across the globe. But while they were cool stuff, I don't think I heard the word customer mentioned that often.
Right.
And so I was quite disillusioned with the investment banking. I wanted to get back to serving customers, and what actually banking really is.
And was there something that brought you home specifically? Because people who get a foothold in London, it's obviously a big choice. I mean,
yeah, that's right.
And you would have had roots in the UK, I suppose, as well, through your father.
Well, that was the fork in the road, is what do I want to do? Spend 20 years here? Or I am a proud Kiwi, and I do deeply believe in the potential of New Zealand, and I wanted to come home and make a dent for New Zealand. And that's when Kiwi Bank, I met Sam Knowles and Paul Brock. The bank had only just kicked off. No one wanted Kiwi Bank, and I thought as a marketer, there was no better opportunity. And I deeply believed of what Kiwi Bank could stand for in New Zealand. And so I spent 14 years.
So you were there almost from day one.
And it was still just post-project. I joined in 2003. I think it launched late 2000.
National Bank kind of disappeared on you. That got sold off around 2003 or something anyway.
Exactly, yes.
And so how did you find, that experience? I mean, I guess you still probably want to be reasonably diplomatic about Kiwi Bank, but I mean, has it been, Do you see it as a great success?
I do. It does take 50 years to build a bank, but having a bank, I mean, banking is actually quite strategic. It is probably the number one wealth distributor, to ensure that small businesses become medium, and medium can become large. People get into homes, and people can, live well. And so I believe in the outcomes of banking, and I do believe that banking is strategic, and having a bank that operates in New Zealand's best interest first and foremost, I think is critical. And so that was probably the cause that I fell in love with, to really make sure that when I'm a bit older and I've got grandkids, that there is a bank that is for New Zealand.
Sure. It's kind of a step, well, a couple of steps from, say, investment banking in the UK to Kiwibank, which is still making a profit but has this sort of greater good and is public owned, and then again to Southern Cross, which is, as you mentioned, is technically not for profit. Obviously, has to be profit conscious. But how did you find that transition? And also, I wanted to sort of get a sense of how it works at Southern Cross, because obviously you've got to be financially successful, or you won't be able to keep doing what you do. So what drives you if it's not the pure profit motive that maybe an investment bank would have?
Well, I think the young people, or contemporary term for our not-for-profit, is a social enterprise. I mean, we're fundamentally a social enterprise. What that largely means is our million customers are our shareholder. So actually it's a beautiful thing. I actually think a social enterprise is a powerful force for delivering services that matter, like health. And so while we're very profit conscious, and remember we are a cyclical business, so we have to generate profits, because a friendly society can't borrow nor raise capital. So it actually has to generate it.
So that trust is key to
is fundamental. But we are not profit driven. Fundamentally, we are there to deliver the health services our members need, and to make sure that we are economically sustainable to do that for the next 50 or 60 years. And so we are a very purpose and causal-based business, but that is not too dissimilar to how Kiwibank was. And so actually it's a very natural progression between the two. We actually have to be functionally excellent. I mean, we've got 4.1 million claims, 2,500 healthcare partnerships, 4,000 businesses that we have to look after, and almost 1 million members. So we actually have to be functionally excellent in what we do. And I love that, but the motivating force for the 800 people at Southern Cross is to empower our members to live well for longer. We're a quality of life proposition.
Sure. And are you hitting targets around growth, around members, around delivery of health and that sort of thing? Is that how it works?
Yes, of course. I mean, we have to be a high performance business. Just because you're for good does not guarantee your future. And, fundamentally you've got to be functionally excellent, but you also got to be relevant. And that's probably our strategic challenge. I reckon most services, product businesses, the fight is for your future relevance of your customer base. And that's still front and centre for us.
Sure, yeah. Look, can I ask the elephant in the room question? I know that many listeners will be wanting to. They'll be thinking, okay, not for profit, but why do premiums seem so high to me, or to many people?
Well, very quickly, the best way to describe that is a dollar of premium. So the first thing at Southern Cross, for every dollar of premium you pay us, 90 cents of that basically goes to pay for your healthcare. 10 cents goes to pay for our operating costs. And that's at the high level. The industry, for every dollar that they get, about 60 cents goes to pay for your healthcare, about 40% for their costs and for shareholder return. So we are a money go round in that sense. Now, the reason why health insurance prices have been going up, if you look back over the last 20 years, they've been going up about 6 or 7% a year. Now, 70% of that price increase is our members using more healthcare services. Only 20 or 30% of that premium is because of the cost of the procedures. And so when you look at CPI, it's the same basket of goods each year.
Yeah.
We are not the same basket of goods, and so that's why we are growing faster than
and
the
every year
CPI.
there's new technology coming in that's adding to the things that you can deliver, I guess.
Correct, yeah. You were going from sort of low-tech imaging to your MRI scans all the time. But yes, it is the only reason your premium is largely going up is the membership using more services each year.
Yeah.
And so we do a lot in contracting with our healthcare partners to make sure that the price doesn't go up more than inflation, and that's largely happened for the last 10 to 20 years. So it is really how much our members use is really the premium.
Sure. I mean, is there a demographic aspect to it too? We've got an aging population, and I know the other thing that you'll always hear people talking about is how much premiums go up as you hit certain age targets.
Yes.
Because obviously, unfortunately, we're all going to be more reliant on healthcare as we get older, and so is that something that would be driving premiums across when you look at the average across the whole group?
Yes. Well, I think you'd be surprised to know that the average age, 1 million members, the average age is 40. So we've got 500,000 less than 40 and 500,000 older than 40. And that's the power of the insurance model. We need the good, healthy lives as well as the lives that need sick care to be funded. And so our actually age is not increasing each year. We've got to find 1 million years each year to do that. So it's really, really important to have a good distributed book.
Yep.
We're there to fund their healthcare, but when you get from about 55 onwards, that's when you start using health services. And so we do price for age. I mean, it's a little bit like car insurance, isn't it? It's having the oldest paying for the youngest. They wouldn't want that. But we actually, as a friendly society, we've got to be equal to all members. And so really we price health insurance based on your age. So we pool all the 63-year-olds, we look at what you're going to claim next year, and that is your premium. And we look at all the 35-year-olds and what you claim. So it does increase. But we have a lot of options for affordability when you're 55 older, like your excesses and co-pays. I was
going to ask that. Maybe you've got some tips. As people get into that older bracket, should they be relooking at at their insurance and how they structure that to suit the age that they are, I guess?
Well, that's right. I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't give any financial advice there. But my advice to Mum was that my mum was sort of getting on 70, and she gave me health insurance in Southern Cross as a young child, which I love her for that. But she said, "I can't afford it, Nick," and I said, "Well." Let's look at an excess. And that halved her premium. And the first $4,000 a year, if she needed something big, I can fund that, or Mum can fund that, those sorts of things. So we were there for that. So I really encourage all our members when they're finding it tough. And often when you get older, it's the big things that happen. It's the cancer care. It's the hips and knees. It's
you're
the
probably
heart.
eligible for some of the more basic stuff. You become eligible. You're going to be getting to it in the state system, public system a bit quicker.
Potentially, But our excesses only apply to the big stuff, not the small stuff. I would encourage, and we had about 25,000 members put excesses in last year because of, the economic environment and those sorts of things.
So that reduces the premiums. You've got a bigger excess, but it means if something really bad happens, you've got the coverage.
You've still got covered, and you've still got your pre-existing conditions covered.
And so maybe it might change the equation on the odd scan or something like that, which you can sort of afford to either wait for public or just do, I suppose.
Yeah, well, imaging sits outside those excesses. Imaging's really important. We want you to get your diagnosis as fast as possible, so we don't have those in the excesses.
I see. Yeah. I mean, that is a huge growth because they just get better and better at imaging every year, don't they? So.
Well, that's right. It is one of the fastest growing specialties, but actually. Diagnosis, that's the critical thing. When you look at a lot of sick care, the earlier you can prevent something or the earlier you can find it, that is not only good for our member, it is also good for the economics of insurance business.
Yeah, so you get it early, everyone wins.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that relationship between health and wealth because, I'm interested in how you view it because people sometimes will put health on the back burner for the sake of wealth, and then they'll lose their health, and of course, then realize what it was worth. I mean, how do you look at that? It's a balancing act for people trying to manage, where they put their money and things, isn't it?
It is, and I think the one thing that I've learnt, this is in my 9th year as CEO, is health has got a huge resonance. And we can talk about, banking and other services, but health is very personal. And I was surprised to learn over those 8 years that our average age in New Zealand is 82.
Right, yeah.
That's our lifespan. But actually our health span is 70. The last 12 years of Kiwis' lives is in sickness.
Right, yeah.
And we've got to claim that back. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do at Southern Cross is to the social determinants, your housing, your job prospects, your social issues or non-issues that you're sort of brought up with contribute to that sort of health span loss.
Yep.
Access to healthcare quickly is a contributor, and your behaviours in life, your communicable, non-communicable diseases, those sorts of things. So we are heavily vested in shortening that 12 years. We want to claim that back for our members. And so I actually think we talk a lot about the house being New Zealand's number one asset, but actually when I talk to a lot of our members, your health is your number one asset.
Primary
it is not well known of that, but it needs to be, because those 12 years are quite special.
Absolutely.
And actually making those decisions now to protect that and invest in that health so you can enjoy that is quite critical.
I want to get on to some quick-fire questions, if I can. What's the poorest you've ever been?
Well, I was going to say the university years, but I actually had money in the I think the poorest I've ever been was my first year working at the National Bank.
Right,
when I had a car, I had to
all
pay
the
rent.
real life.
Yeah, so I had money coming in, but it was equally going out.
So when you were actually just being a student and you had the fruit picking and whatnot, you could get by
I was
a bit
flush January to June.
When you finally did get a bit of you got the salary up a few steps and things, or what was the most indulgent purchase you think you've ever made?
I think the most indulgent purchases I make today are really experiences. They're the golf game at TRI, or taking the family to Europe, for 6 or 7 weeks, those sorts of things. That's not a common occurrence, but I think that's an investment, the experiences. So I'd say they're my indulgences. Yeah,
I mean, overall, would you say you're more of a saver or a spender?
My father's a Yorkshireman.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought I might know the answer to that.
No, look, I love my saving is probably my context. I enjoy investing in things, in family and experiences. But actually saving is probably my context. And I just wish I had a Sharesies when I was a Sharesies type company to make, because I was very late by getting into, the equities and the shares and the stocks and businesses was a sort of stockbroking. It was something that was very far away.
At those days,
and had there been a Sharesies of, when I was growing up, I would have fallen in love, I think, with that share stock trading and being those sorts of things. So I'm a late bloomer into that, but love it.
Are you someone who, are you doing all the right financial things, or do you trade some shares and things?
Yes, I've got my Kiwi Saver. I've had it for a long, long time, so that's my set and forget, 65 plus. But I do have my own savings that I like to manage in funds, or I have managers that fund that. But I also have direct investments. Where I want to spend my time in the future is really powering up those small businesses in New Zealand to scale them into industry. Because I'm a big believer that New Zealand's economy does have to grow.
Absolutely.
And technology businesses, whether they're agri-tech, biotech, software businesses, I think are our future.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say is the best piece of financial advice you've ever received?
Well, I'd probably say when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I think is learn about assets and building assets rather than just salary and income. And I think my dad would always tell me, don't spend more than you earn.
Which is a great
sort of axiom. That's right. But it was more around invest wisely in assets, and the power of annuity income and those sorts of things was really important. So I've really tried to, I've obviously worked my whole life. I don't retire on those assets, but just thinking with an asset mindset rather than just an income mindset.
Sure, yeah. I mean, having talked about how making money, you're working for a non-profit, but you've been in the money world. I mean, how much is career and life about making money? How important is that? How much of it is a byproduct of success?
Well, I think it's more the latter. I mean, I think it's, money is important. It's important to all New Zealanders, and so, but I think it's important to have a healthy relationship with money. A lot of Kiwis are doing it really tough at the moment. But I actually think that healthy relationship with money and then making sure that you do spend wisely. I mean, I think a lot of it is around, when I look at a lot of health, it's sort of financial literacy. It's more about investment, but it's actually about spending wisely and making good choices. And I think that's probably, New Zealand's financial literacy opportunity.
Yeah, sure. It sort of leads to my next and kind of the last question, but it's a big one. If we could make you Prime Minister for a day or, give you a magic wand to fix New Zealand, what would you focus on to try and solve the equity issues, the economic inequality, and I guess in your case in particular, some of the social inequality we see around health and the outcomes there? Are the key things you would like to see that you could deliver?
Well, it's a big final question.
Yeah,
I would love to be Prime Minister for a day and no longer. I probably believe in two. As I said before, I deeply believe in the potential for prosperity for New Zealand. As a small country, it doesn't mean to say we can't be a great one. I think there's two big issues we've got. We've got a GDP per capita issue. We are lagging and falling further behind, and we don't spread our wealth across our population more equally, and that leads to social disharmony. So they are our two big gnarly problems. If you'd asked me that question a couple of years ago, I would have said my one day would be focused on the education system. But, I think that is heading in the right direction. We need to claim back the high fidelity we had around, investing in the brains and young brains of New Zealand. But if I had a day, I would spend it almost exclusively on creating the environmental conditions for tech businesses to really thrive. I fundamentally, the world has never been closer to us with Gen AI, it's never been closest to us with cloud computing, and the opportunity of turn our young minds into wealth through those businesses and export to the world, not in the conventional products on ships way, but actually grow and scale businesses. And it's only been the last 10 years with the sort of Xeros, the Rocket Labs, the Kiwi Banks, the Trade Me's that have really grown those businesses.
And this is about encouraging more investment, R&D, all that sort of stuff.
And then once, at the same time, we have to figure out ways to distribute that wealth more equally. Every New Zealander deserves an opportunity to be educated and have a shot at that, as then it's up to them to really grow the prosperity individually. But I think we've got to create those conditions for that to happen.
No, that's a great thought. Thank you, Nick. Thanks for being on Money Talks. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Money Talks. If you want to get in touch, drop me a line at liam.dan@nzme.co.nz, and you can read more from me at nzherald.co.nz. Follow Money Talks on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts, with new episodes available every Thursday. And if you are new to the podcast, you can check out our back catalogue with over 60 guests from across our seasons.